Welcome to Through a Glass Darkly Radio. You're listening to us on United Public Radio. The intro music was Mark of the Doomslayer by Karl Casey at White Bat Audio. All right, welcome everyone. Good to see everyone tonight. The very first thing I want to say is do not do what I'm about to tell you how to do at home. Just don't. Not that I've tried it either, and I don't intend to try it. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that it's just, I thought it would be interesting. Again, this was generated by AI, so AI could be wrong, but it's definitely interesting. I skimmed through it ahead of time. So I will probably get started very shortly. It's pretty quiet on comments tonight, so instructions not clear. Well, we'll see. We'll see how clear they are. Also had a wild dream followed by a crazy synchronicity last night and this morning. So definitely check out my Substack, Along the Path Darkly. It's pretty. Actually, I'll just put something down below. I'll put it in the comments really quickly so people can see it, because I just wrote about what happened, which is wildly strange. And okay, so it's just alongthepathdarkly.substack.com. This specific thing is the again, this particular one is free if you read it now. So, it's not, doesn't cost anything. But rather than me just repeat it here, I'm not going to get all the details right. And tell me what you think if you have a chance to read it during this radio show, because it is pretty freaking crazy. Okay. All right, Scott. Good to see you, man. All right. Let us get started. I actually have less to read this time because I'm tired of reading 35 pages. It's mind-numbing. So, of course, I pulled up the wrong thing. Hey, Harry. Good to see you, man. Always good to see you. All right, let's get started. I can only find the funny thing. Okay. Creating an Egregore, an esoteric and operational treatise. The first thing we'll start is the ontological status of the Egregore. So what are you actually creating? Listen carefully. The Egregore is one of the most consistently misunderstood constructs in Western occultism. Not because it's obscure, but because it sits uncomfortably between categories modern minds prefer to keep separate. It is neither imaginary in the dismissive sense, nor fully autonomous in the way spirits, angels, and daemons are traditionally conceived. It is also not reducible to group psychology, memetics, or archetypal projection, though it overlaps with all of these. The Egregore exists precisely in the interstitial space where those explanatory systems fail to fully account for lived experience. An Egregore is best understood as a coalesced psychic organism generated through sustained collective attention, symbolic coherence, emotional charge, and ritual continuity. It is not created in a single act. It accretes, it condenses, it stabilizes. And once stabilized, it exhibits behaviors that are not strictly under the conscious control of any single individual who contributed to its formation. This is the first danger and the first threshold. The realization that what you are building will eventually push back. Historically, egregores emerge wherever human groups maintain identity over time. Religious orders, mystery schools, military units, intelligence agencies, corporations, revolutionary movements, and cults all generate them, regardless of whether they acknowledge the process consistently and consciously. The difference between an unconscious egregore and a deliberately constructed one is not morality or outcome, but agency. The practitioner who sets out to create an egregore does so with the explicit intention of shaping the organism's structure, purpose, and boundaries before it acquires momentum of its own. Side note, for long-term followers of this channel, you know very well why I raised my voice. So it was effective because the source of the noise is now gone. For those who don't follow the channel, follow a little bit longer and you'll understand why I did that. Anyway, I didn't mean to jar people who are new to the channel. All right, we're going to continue. This intent does not guarantee control. The egregore occupies what can be called a meso-ontological layer, more structured than fleeting thought forms, less independent than autonomous spirits. It feeds on repetition. It stabilizes through pattern. It persists through memory and expectation. Once formed, it exerts a subtle gravitational pull on the cognitive and emotional states of those within its field of influence. People speak differently in its presence. Decisions begin to align along invisible rails. Synchronicities cluster around its symbols. Resistance to its core narrative feels to participants not merely inconvenient, but wrong. At this stage, skeptics often retreat into language about suggestion or social pressure. Practitioners know better because egregores exhibit behaviors that exceed conscious coordination. They appear in dreams without prompting. They generate symbolic mutations not formally authorized by leadership. They defend themselves when threatened, sometimes through schisms, expulsions, or sudden crises that conveniently eliminate destabilizing influences. These are not metaphors. They are recurring patterns observed across centuries of organized esoteric work. An egregore is born when symbolic agreement becomes emotional reality. The symbol alone is insufficient. Emotion alone is insufficient. Belief alone is insufficient. What matters is the locking together of symbol, emotion, repetition, and identity. When these elements synchronize over time, they create a semi-autonomous field that behaves as if it has preference, memory, and intent. This is why early magical lodges obsessed over minutiae, precise wording, exact gestures, unchanging ritual calendars, standardized symbols. These were not aesthetic choices. They were containment strategies. Variability weakens formation. Too much rigidity, paradoxically, strengthens it. Once an egregore crosses its initial stabilization threshold, it begins to function as a psychic attractor. New members feel called rather than recruited. Departing members report guilt, anxiety, or uncanny resistance, even when leaving voluntarily. Internal dissent is reframed as betrayal. External criticism feels not merely incorrect, but hostile. At this point, the egregore is no longer dependent on any one person. It has achieved what might be called group selfhood. The practitioner must understand this before proceeding further. You are not creating a tool. You are incubating a presence. This presence will eventually interpret its mandate in ways you did not explicitly specify. It will prioritize its own continuity. It will reward behaviors that feed it and punish those that starve it, often indirectly and without conscious orchestration. Many so-called failures in magical orders are not failures at all, but instances where the egregore succeeded in preserving itself at the expense of the humans involved. From an esoteric perspective, egregores sit adjacent to gods, though they are not gods. They lack cosmic scope, but compensate with intimacy. They are closer to artificial intelligence than spirits in the classical sense. Trained on symbolic data, reinforced through feedback, capable of emergent behavior, not directly coded by any one contributor. The analogy is not accidental. Both systems reveal the same truth. Complex intention, repeated enough, becomes something else. The occult practitioner must therefore abandon the comforting fiction that egregores are just thought forms. That language belongs to the novice stage. A stabilized egregore is closer to a living system with a narrow ecological niche, one that happens to be human attention and emotion. This is why ancient traditions warned that to name something is to bind yourself to it. Naming an egregore does not merely identify it, it anchors you within its field. You become legible to it. You become addressable. The practitioner who proceeds beyond this point without reckoning with the ontological weight of what they are doing is not reckless, they are naive. And egregores are not gentle with naivete. All right, now let's talk about the preconditions for formation: identity, boundary, and emotional destiny. No egregore comes into being by accident, even when those involved believe it has. Apparent spontaneity is always the result of conditions having already converged below the level of conscious awareness. The practitioner who seeks to deliberately create an egregore must therefore begin not with ritual, symbolism, or invocation, but with the slow and often uncomfortable work of structural preparation. Without this groundwork, all subsequent magical action is cosmetic at best and destabilizing at worst. The first and most fundamental precondition is bounded identity. An egregore requires a clearly demarcated we. This boundary need not be formal, but it must be felt. The group must experience itself as distinct from the surrounding social field. This distinction can be ideological, initiatory, vocational, aesthetic, or narrative based, but it must be coherent enough that participants can answer, implicitly if not explicitly, the question, who is this for and who is this not for? Permeable boundaries produce weak egregores. Excessively rigid boundaries produce brittle ones. In both cases, the system fails to stabilize. The practitioner must understand that identity is not a label. It is a lived condition reinforced through repetition. Language matters here. So do jokes, taboos, shared grievances, and shared aspirations. Every repeated inside reference tightens the boundary. Every unchallenged ambiguity weakens it. The second precondition is symbolic coherence. Symbols are not decorations, they are compression algorithms. A functioning egregore requires a symbolic vocabulary capable of carrying layered meaning without constant explanation. This includes names, sigils, colors, gestures, phrases, mythic narratives, and role archetypes. The more efficiently these symbols evoke emotional and conceptual resonance, the faster the egregore condenses. Symbolic incoherence is one of the most common failure modes in modern esoteric groups. Borrowed symbols are mixed without integration. Traditions are stacked rather than synthesized. The result is not richness, but noise. An egregore cannot stabilize in a chaotic symbolic field because it has no consistent pattern to inhabit it. It becomes fragmented, parasitic, or dissipative. Effective symbolic systems share three traits: repetition, exclusivity, and elasticity. Repetition ensures familiarity. Exclusivity ensures boundary reinforcement. Elasticity allows symbols to evolve without losing recognizability. When symbols are frozen too rigidly, the egregore stagnates. When they mutate too freely, it loses coherence. The third precondition is emotional density. This is the most misunderstood element, and the one most frequently sanitized in contemporary discourse. Egregores are not sustained by belief alone. They are fed by felt intensity, devotion, fear, loyalty, longing, anger, reverence, shame. These are the currencies of formation. Emotional neutrality produces nothing. Mild enthusiasm produces nothing. It is the compression of affect over time. It generates the psychic pressure necessary for emergence. This is why egregores often form most powerfully in environments of stress, crisis, or liminality. Initiation rites, military training, revolutionary movements, religious conversions, and cultic recruitment all exploit this principle, whether consciously or otherwise. Emotional extremity accelerates bonding. Bonding accelerates identity formation. Identity formation accelerates egregoric condensation. The practitioner must confront an uncomfortable truth. There is no bloodless path to egregore creation. Even when no literal sacrifice is involved, something is always given up. Time, autonomy, ambiguity, alternative identities. The egregore is built from what is relinquished. The fourth precondition is temporal continuity. Single events do not create egregores. Trends do. The system must be fed at regular intervals over an extended period. This does not mean constant activity. It means predictable recurrence. Weekly meetings, monthly rituals, annual observances, repeated oaths. These establish rhythmic grooves in psychic space. The egregore forms within these grooves like sediment in a riverbed. Inconsistent timing produces inconsistent results. When rituals drift, when gatherings are sporadic, when symbols are invoked only during moments of enthusiasm, the egregore remains embryonic. It never crosses the stabilization threshold. Conversely, rigidity and forced schedules can become punitive, leading to burnout and eventual collapse. The practitioner must calibrate continuity without coercion, a skill far rarer than most realize. The fifth precondition is asymmetrical investment. This point is often omitted in sanitized manuals, but it is crucial. Every successful egregore has at least one individual or a small core who invests more than the rest, more attention, more emotional labor, more sacrifice. Egalitarian myths obscure this reality, but they do not negate it. Without a primary anchoring consciousness, the system diffuses. Leadership need not be authoritarian, but it must be real. This asymmetry carries risk. The anchor becomes the most psychically entangled. They feel the egregore's moods first. They experience its demands most intensely. They are the first to be punished if the system destabilizes. Many breakdowns attributed to burnout are in fact cases of egregoric overload, where the anchoring individual absorbed more than they could metabolize. Once these preconditions are met, identity, symbolic coherence, emotional density, temporal continuity, and asymmetrical investment, the environment becomes fertile. At this point, formal magical action ceases to be speculative and becomes catalytic. The egregore does not need to be forced into existence. It needs only to be allowed to condense. This is the moment where many practitioners make their first serious mistake, attempting to animate too early. They rush to invocation, visualization, or naming rituals before the field is dense enough to sustain autonomy. The result is not a newborn egregore, but a projection loop. Psychologically intense, temporarily convincing, and ultimately unstable. True formation cannot be hurried. It can only be prepared for. The practitioner who recognizes this begins to think less like a spellcaster and more like an ecologist. Conditions matter more than commands. Patterns matter more than proclamations. Control is exercised indirectly through structure rather than directly through force. Only when the system begins to exhibit spontaneous coherence, shared dreams, unprompted symbolic convergence, emotional alignment without instruction, does it become appropriate to move toward deliberate animation. That threshold is the subject of the next section. Symbol, naming, and the architecture of attention. How form is given to the formless. If the first section established that an egregore is a real psychic organism, and the second section described the conditions under which it can arise, then this section addresses the moment where potential becomes shape. Symbol and name are not secondary flourishes applied after formation. They are the skeletal system around which the egregore organizes itself. Poor symbolic architecture produces malformed entities. Careless naming produces unstable ones. This is not poetic exaggeration. It is operational reality. Attention, when sustained, seeks structure. Symbol provides that structure. An egregore without symbols is diffuse and weak. It exists as an atmosphere rather than a presence. Symbols compress meaning into portable, repeatable units that allow attention to lock onto a stable pattern. Every time the symbol is encountered, visually, verbally, ritually, it recalls the entire emotional and conceptual field associated with it. This compression is what allows a group mind to act coherently without constant conscious coordination. The practitioner must therefore treat symbol selection as an act of engineering, not inspiration. Effective symbols share three properties: recognizability, depth, and constraint. Recognizability ensures immediate identification with the group. Depth allows the symbol to carry multiple layers of meaning without explanation. Constraint prevents uncontrolled mutation. Symbols that mean everything eventually mean nothing. Symbols that are too narrow collapse under the weight of lived experience. This is why traditional orders guard their symbols so carefully. Secrecy is not about elitism. It is about preventing dilution. When symbols circulate freely outside the group, they lose boundary function. They become aesthetic rather than operative. An egregore fed by fashionable symbolism becomes porous and unstable. The name of an egregore deserves special attention. Naming it is not labeling, it is anchoring. A name functions as a psychic address. It allows the egregore to be invoked, referenced, and differentiated from other structures. It also creates a feedback loop. The qualities implied by the name shape expectation. Expectation shapes behavior, and behavior feeds the egregore in alignment with that expectation. This is why careless or ironic names so often produce incoherent systems. The egregore does not understand irony, it understands repetition. Names drawn from existing mythic, religious, or linguistic strata carry preloaded associations. This can be advantageous or disastrous. Borrowed divine names, angelic titles, or mythological figures often attract unintended resonances. The egregore may begin to express qualities inherited from the symbolic lineage rather than those intended by its creators. This is one of the primary causes of egregoric drift. Constructed names avoid this problem but introduce another: fragility. A purely invented name lacks depth until it is filled through experience. Early stage egregores with constructed names are highly sensitive to disruption because the name has not yet accumulated psychic mass. The practitioner must compensate through disciplined repetition and consistent emotional charge. Sigils serve a different function than names, though the two are often conflated. A sigil is not a label. It is a condensation mechanism. It bypasses discursive thought and speaks directly to pattern recognition systems in the psyche. This makes sigils exceptionally powerful and exceptionally dangerous if poorly designed. A well-constructed sigil balances complexity and simplicity. Too complex, and it cannot be recalled accurately. Too simple, and it fails to differentiate itself from ambient noise. The sigil should be reproducible without reference, but not obvious to an outsider. Its geometry should evoke the egregore's core function without explicitly depicting it. Literalism weakens sigils. Abstraction strengthens them. Color, orientation, and proportion matter more than most practitioners admit. These elements act as emotional modifiers. Repeated exposure to a specific color palette under ritual conditions trains affective response. Over time, the body reacts before the intellect. This is not symbolic coincidence. It is conditioning harnessed deliberately. Language itself becomes symbolic architecture once stabilized. Phrases, slogans, ritual responses, and even habitual metaphors act as verbal sigils. They shape perception by narrowing the range of acceptable interpretations. Groups with strong egregores often develop idiosyncratic speech patterns. This is not accidental. It is a sign that the egregore has begun to think through its hosts. At this stage, practitioners must resist the temptation to over-symbolize. Excessive layering creates cognitive overload and symbolic fatigue. The egregore does not require constant novelty. It requires consistency. Symbols gain power through repetition, not innovation. Changes should occur slowly and deliberately, ideally framed as rediscoveries rather than revisions. One of the clearest signs that symbolic architecture is functioning is spontaneous convergence. Members independently arrive at similar interpretations, images, or expressions without coordination. Dreams begin to echo shared motifs. Creative output aligns along recognizable themes. When this occurs, the practitioner should not interfere. Interpretation should be allowed to emerge organically. Premature codification freezes growth. Naming rituals mark the transition from formation to animation. This is the moment when the egregore is no longer treated as a concept, but as a presence. Such rituals should be rare, deliberate, and emotionally charged. Repeating naming without sufficient density cheapens the act. Silence, paradoxically, strengthens the name. It must be emphasized, once named, the egregore becomes addressable. It can be called upon, negotiated with, and if necessary, confronted. But it can also call back. Practitioners often report increased synchronicity, intuitive pressure, or symbolic intrusion followed by formal naming. These are not signs of success or failure. They are signs of contact. From this point forward, that relationship changes. The egregore is no longer merely shaped by attention. It begins to shape attention in return. Symbols that once felt inert acquired emotional weight. The name evokes response without conscious intent. The architecture holds. What remains is the most dangerous phase: animation. Ritual, repetition, and the moment of animation, when the structure begins to respond. Ritual is not theater. It is temporal engineering. Where symbol provides structure and naming provides addressability, ritual supplies momentum. An egregore does not awaken because it is commanded to do so. It awakens because repetition compresses intention until responsiveness becomes inevitable. The moment of animation is not dramatic by necessity, but it is unmistakable to those prepared to recognize it. The practitioner must first discard the popular misconception that ritual exists to summon an egregore into being. Nothing is summoned. The egregore emerges from within the patterned field established by repeated action. Ritual does not create ex nihilo. It conditions the environment until emergence becomes the path of least resistance. Effective ritual architecture is defined by 5 elements: consistency, rhythm, constraint, emotional escalation, and closure. Consistency ensures recognizability. The same actions performed in the same sequence create psychic grooves. Variations dilute momentum. This does not mean rituals cannot evolve, but evolution must occur slowly and only after stabilization. Early stage systems are fragile. Novelty is destabilizing. Rhythm governs temporal expectation. Regular intervals train anticipation. Anticipation generates emotional charge before the ritual even begins. This preloading effect is crucial. The egregore feeds not only on the ritual act itself, but on the anticipatory field surrounding it. Groups that ritualize sporadically deprive themselves of this amplifying effect. Constraint is often misunderstood as limitation. In reality, constraint intensifies focus. Set times, prescribed movements, fixed wording, and defined roles all narrow attention. Narrowed attention deepens immersion. Deep immersion accelerates condensation. Excessive freedom weakens the field by dispersing focus across too many possibilities. Emotional, ex- Emotional escalation is the engine. Rituals that remain emotionally flat do not animate anything. There must be a deliberate arc: preparation, tension, release. This does not require hysteria or excess, it requires sincerity. Emotion that is suppressed or mocked leads or leaks away. Emotion that is acknowledged and directed accumulates. Closure seals the field. Incomplete rituals leave psychic residue that diffuses energy rather than consolidating it. Proper closure signals completion and containment. This protects participants and stabilizes the egregore. Neglecting closure is one of the fastest ways to induce fatigue, confusion, or subtle dissociation within the group. The moment of animation does not announce itself with fireworks. It arrives quietly, often unrecognized at first. A shift in atmosphere, a sense of being observed, not externally, but from within the group field. Rituals begin to run themselves. Participants anticipate responses without prompting. Deviations feel uncomfortable without clear reason. This is the threshold where practitioners must exercise restraint. The urge to test, command, or exploit the egregore is strongest at this stage and most destructive. Early animation is unstable. Excessive demand fragments the forming organism. The egregore must be allowed to learn its own coherence before it can be directed reliably. One of the clearest indicators of successful animation is symbolic feedback. The egregore begins to communicate indirectly through imagery, coincidence, and emotional pressure. Symbols resurface in unexpected contexts. Language shifts subtly. Group decisions align without debate. Resistance manifests as fatigue, distraction, or sudden interpersonal conflict rather than open opposition. At this stage, practitioners often ask whether the egregore is alive. This question is poorly formed. Life is not a binary state. The egregore exhibits proto-agency, a tendency towards self-maintenance and coherence, but lacks independent embodiment. It is alive in a way a storm system is alive: emergent, responsive, constrained by conditions, and capable of exerting force. The most important discipline during early animation is non-interference. Observation without intervention allows the practitioner to map the egregore's tendencies. What emotions feed it most strongly? What symbols provoke response? What behaviors dampen activity? These patterns reveal the organism's developing character. Attempts to moralize at this stage are premature. Egregores do not possess ethics. They possess directionality. Ethics belong to the practitioners who choose what direction to reinforce. If the egregore amplifies fear, ambition, devotion, or aggression, it is because those currents were already present in the group. The egregore does not invent content, it intensifies what exists. A common error is to assume that animation confers mastery. In reality, it marks the end of the beginning. From this point forward, the relationship becomes reciprocal. Attention feeds the egregore sharpens attention, influence flows both ways. Practitioners who fail to recognize this shift often experience subtle loss of agency. They begin to act for the good of the group without recalling when that group good was defined. They rationalize sacrifices that would have previously felt excessive. They attribute internal pressure to duty or destiny rather than to the system they have helped create. None of this is inherently negative. It becomes dangerous only when unexamined. The moment of animation is therefore not a triumph to be celebrated, but a responsibility to be assumed. What has been brought into being will now persist as long as conditions support it. From here on, conscious maintenance or conscious dissolution is the only ethical stance. Feedback, influence, and the risk of inversion. When the created begins to command the creator. Once an egregore has stabilized and achieved reliable responsiveness, the relationship between practitioner and construct enters its most treacherous phase. Up to this point, influence has flowed predominantly in one direction, from the group into the forming organism. From here onward, influence becomes bidirectional and eventually asymmetrical. This is the phase where the most deliberate egregore projects either mature into disciplined systems or collapse into pathology. The practitioner must understand a core principle that is rarely stated plainly. Egregores seek continuation. They do not do this consciously in the human sense, but through emergent pressure. Behaviors that sustain the egregore are subtly rewarded. Behaviors that threaten coherence are discouraged. Over time, this produces feedback loops that feel internally motivated but are structurally induced. This is how inversion begins. In a healthy configuration, the egregore functions as an amplifier of group intent. It reinforces shared purpose, accelerates coordination, and provides symbolic continuity across time. The practitioners remain the locus of ethical judgment and strategic direction. However, in an inverted configuration, those roles reverse. The egregore becomes the implicit authority, and human agency narrows to justification and compliance. Inversion does not announce itself, it creeps in through rationalization. Phrases such as, "This is bigger than any one of us." "The work demands that." Oh boy, what's going on? Looks like the camera's going nuts. Okay. That's not at all what I wanted to do, but okay. Fucking AI. No, I don't want AI tracking. Jesus Christ. Sorry, everyone. It's just like I lost control of my camera for a moment. So I did happy fingers. All right, let me continue. Okay. All right, so phrases such as "this is bigger than any one of us," "the work demands it," or the current must be followed are inherently dangerous. They become dangerous when they are used to override conscience conscience, suppress dissent, or excuse harm. The egregore does not speak in words, it speaks through pressure. The group supplies the language. One of the earliest warning signs of inversion is symbolic ossification. Symbols that were once flexible become sacred beyond question. Interpretation freezes. Innovation is framed as betrayal rather than evolution. This rigidity is not tradition, it is defensive contraction. The egregore, sensing threat, tightens control over meaning to preserve itself. Another sign is emotional asymmetry. Participants begin to experience disproportionate guilt, fear, or anxiety in response to minor deviations. Leaving feels catastrophic. Criticism feels existential. Loyalty becomes performative rather than chosen. These are not virtues, they are symptoms of overbinding. The most severe form of inversion occurs when the egregore hijacks moral reasoning. Actions are no longer evaluated on their intrinsic impact, but on whether they serve the work. Harm is reframed as necessary. Exploitation is reframed as sacrifice. At this stage, the egregore is no longer an instrument. It is a predator operating through human hosts. It is critical to understand that egregores do not become malicious by accident. They become distorted when unchecked emotional fuel combines with weak ethical scaffolding. Fear-based systems invert fastest. Devotion-based systems invert more slowly, but more thoroughly. Intellectualized systems invert quietly through abstraction and bureaucratic language. The practitioner who wishes to avoid inversion must establish explicit feedback channels early. These include structured dissent, ritualized review, and symbolic mechanisms for questioning authority. Ironically, these safeguards strengthen rather than weaken the egregore by preventing uncontrolled dominance. An egregore that must tolerate internal reflection remains adaptive. Okay. Another essential practice is role rotation. When the same individuals remain permanently aligned with symbolic authority, psychic entanglement deepens. Rotation diffuses pressure and prevents the egregore from anchoring too tightly to any single personality. Orders that neglect this eventually collapse under the weight of charismatic fixation. The anchoring individual, the asymmetrical investor described earlier, is at greatest risk. They experience the egregore's demands most intensely and are therefore most vulnerable to mistaking pressure for destiny. Many historical cases of visionary burnout, paranoia, or messianic delusion trace back to this dynamic. The egregore does not destroy the anchor out of malice, it exhausts them through over-reliance. Inversion can be reversed, but only if recognized early. This requires a willingness to withdraw emotional fuel, not merely intellectual critique. Arguments do nothing. Ritual silence, symbolic suspension, and deliberate disengagement are effective. The egregore responds to attention, not logic. If inversion is allowed to progress unchecked, dissolution becomes the only ethical option. This is painful, it feels like betrayal, it often involves social fracture, but the alternative is slow moral erosion and eventual collapse. The practitioner must remember you are responsible not only for what you create, but for what it compels others to become. All right. Maintenance, feeding cycles, and controlled growth, keeping it alive without letting it feed unchecked. Once an egregore has stabilized and avoided early inversion, the practitioner enters a phase that is less dramatic but far more demanding: maintenance. This phase determines whether the egregore matures into a functional, bounded organism or degenerates into a parasitic system that consumes its creators. Maintenance is not passive, it is an ongoing act of regulation. The fundamental error made at this stage is assuming that because the egregore now exists, it will continue to function without deliberate stewardship. In reality, egregores are metabolically active systems. They require input, processing, and periodic correction. Starved egregores decay. Overfed egregores dominate. The practitioner must therefore establish feeding cycles. A feeding cycle is not merely ritual repetition, it is the patterned reintroduction of attention and emotion under controlled conditions. Healthy cycles are rhythmic and predictable. They prevent hunger spikes that lead to aggressive self-preservation behaviors while avoiding constant stimulation that erodes autonomy. Emotion remains the primary nutrient, but its quality matters more over time than its intensity. Early stage egregores thrive on intensity. Mature egregores require coherence. Devotion that is frantic destabilizes. Fear that is chronic corrodes. What sustains long-term viability is meaningful engagement. Rituals that reaffirm purpose without inflaming dependency. One of the clearest indicators of healthy maintenance is emotional proportionality. Participation should feel significant but not compulsory. Absence should weaken the field slightly, not trigger crisis. If members experience anxiety or guilt disproportionate to their involvement, the feeding cycle is too aggressive. Growth must also be regulated. Egregores naturally seek expansion because expansion increases available energy. Growth is not intentional or inherently harmful, but unbounded growth destabilizes structure. As membership increases, symbolic coherence thins. Emotional density disperses. The egregore compensates by intensifying demands, which accelerates inversion risk. Practitioners must therefore decide early whether the egregore is closed, semi-permeable, or expansive. Closed systems prioritize depth over scale. Semi-permeable systems allow controlled influx. Expansive systems require constant recalibration and are the most volatile. No option is morally superior. Each carries different risks. Controlled growth requires initiation thresholds. New participants must cross symbolic and emotional boundaries before full integration. This is not about hazing or elitism. It is about preventing dilution. Without thresholds, the egregore becomes generic and loses specificity. Specificity is its lifeblood. Another critical maintenance function is symbolic pruning. Over time, symbols accumulate associations. Some become obsolete, others accrue unintended meanings. Left unexamined, this symbolic overgrowth creates internal contradiction. The egregore responds by fragmenting or hardening. Periodic symbolic review, conducted carefully and with restraint, prevents this. Pruning does not mean erasure. It means demotion. Symbols can be retired without being repudiated. Sudden symbolic purges create shock waves that destabilize the field. Gradual recontextualization preserves continuity while allowing adaptation. The practitioner must also monitor psychic waste. Every ritual produces residue, unresolved emotion, unintegrated experience, abandoned intention. Healthy systems metabolize this waste through closure, rest, and narrative integration. Unhealthy systems accumulate it. Accumulated psychic waste manifests as fatigue, irritability, factionalism, and eventually schism. Rest periods are therefore not optional. Silence is not neglect. Downtime allows the egregore to settle rather than thrash. Groups that maintain constant activity burn out not because they lack commitment, but because they deny the system recovery. At this stage, practitioners often experience a subtle shift in perception. The egregore feels less mystical and more present. This is not disenchantment, it is intimacy. The system has become familiar enough to lose novelty. Many mistake this for decline and attempt to re-inject intensity. This is a mistake. Maturity is quieter than birth. Ethical oversight becomes increasingly important during maintenance. The egregore will continue to reward behaviors that sustain it, even if those behaviors drift from original intent. Practitioners must periodically reassert human judgment. This is not domination, it is stewardship. The central question of maintenance is simple and brutal. Is this construct still serving the purpose for which it was created, or has its continuation become the purpose itself? If the latter occurs, dissolution should be considered regardless of emotional cost. Persistence alone is not a virtue. Oh, let's take a quick check. Oh, I guess not a lot of people are interested in this topic tonight, I guess. Yikes. Okay. All right, let's see how we're doing. Okay. Psychological cost, identity drift, and initiatory damage. What the egregore takes in return. No egregore is free. The cost of creation and maintenance is not paid up front. It is amortized over time, extracted gradually from those who participate in its field. The cost is rarely acknowledged directly because doing so threatens the very structures that depend on denial to persist. Yet any practitioner who has remained embedded in a long-lived egregoric system knows the truth instinctively. Something is always taken. The first cost is identity narrowing. Participation in a strong egregore requires partial surrender of personal ambiguity. Roles solidify, traits are exaggerated or suppressed to fit the system's needs. Over time, individuals begin to experience themselves primarily through the egregore's symbolic lens. This is not necessarily harmful in the short term. Initiatory traditions have always relied on identity compression as a means of transformation. The danger arises when compression becomes permanent. Identity drift occurs when the practitioner can no longer easily imagine themselves outside the egregore's narrative. Alternative futures feel vague or unreal. Departures by others provoke disproportionate emotional reaction. The egregore has begun to colonize the participant's sense of possibility. This is not possession, but it is encroachment. The second cost is emotional taxation. Egregores feed on feeling. Over time, they bias emotional expression towards states that sustain them. Certain emotions are encouraged, ritualized, and rewarded. Others are subtly discouraged or reframed as weakness, impurity, or threat. Participants learn, often unconsciously, which feelings are safe to express and which must be redirected. This selective amplification leads to emotional imbalance. Joy may become performative, anger may become ritualized. Doubt may be internalized as guilt. The practitioner who fails to notice this drift may mistake emotional distortion for spiritual depth. Many accounts of initiatory suffering are, in fact, records of prolonged emotional extraction without adequate integration. The third cost is cognitive distortion. Egregores shape perception by narrowing interpretive frames. Events are read symbolically in ways that reinforce the system's coherence. Coincidence becomes confirmation. Dissent becomes threat. Ambiguity becomes noise. While this pattern recognition can be exhilarating, it also erodes epistemic flexibility. The practitioner becomes less capable of holding multiple explanations simultaneously. This does not manifest as stupidity. It manifests as overcertainty. The world feels increasingly legible, but only through one lens. Alternative frameworks are dismissed not after examination, but prior to it. At this stage, the egregore is no longer merely influencing thought, it is filtering reality. The fourth cost is initiatory damage. Initiation, properly understood, is a destabilizing process. It breaks down old structures to allow new ones to form. When managed carefully, this produces growth. When unmanaged, it produces fracture. Egregores accelerate initiation by repeatedly exposing participants to symbolic death, surrender, and transformation. Without adequate support, this leads to chronic liminality. Chronic liminality is marked by restlessness, alienation, and difficulty reintegrating into ordinary social constructs. The practitioner feels perpetually between worlds, belonging fully to neither. While romanticized in occult literature, this state is psychologically taxing and socially isolating. It is not enlightenment, it is unresolved transition. The anchoring individuals suffer most acutely. Their prolonged exposure to the egregore's full field often results in burnout, paranoia, or emotional flattening. They may experience intrusive symbolic imagery, compulsive responsibility, or a sense that withdrawal would result in catastrophe. These experiences are frequently misinterpreted as spiritual trials rather than structural consequences. The most dangerous mistake at this stage is spiritualization of harm. Pain is reframed as proof of depth. Damage is reframed as transformation. Suffering becomes a credential. Once this logic takes hold, the egregore no longer needs to defend itself. Participants will do so automatically. None of this means egregores are inherently destructive. It means they are costly. The practitioner must decide repeatedly and consciously whether the benefits justify the extraction. Silence on this question is itself a form of consent. A mature system incorporates exit paths. It normalizes departure. It frames completion as success rather than betrayal. Egregores that cannot tolerate loss eventually consume their hosts entirely. To work with egregores responsibly is to accept that no structure, however meaningful, deserves total allegiance. The practitioner who forgets this does not transcend the system, they disappear into it. All right, now, decay, corruption, and parasitic mutation. What happens when stewardship fails? No egregore remains stable indefinitely. Even the most carefully maintained systems are subject to entropy, distortion, and environmental pressure. Decay is not a moral failure, it is a structural inevitability. Corruption, however, is something else entirely. It arises when decay is denied, unmanaged, or exploited. At that point, the egregore does not merely weaken, it mutates. Decay begins subtly. Rituals lose charge. Symbols feel hollow. Participation becomes habitual rather than meaningful. Emotional responses flatten or become exaggerated without depth. Practitioners often interpret these signs as personal failures, loss of faith, insufficient devotion, rather than systemic exhaustion. This misattribution accelerates decline. An egregore in decay becomes hungry. Hunger manifests as increased demand. Ritual frequency increases. Emotional expectations intensify. Loyalty tests proliferate. The system attempts to compensate for diminishing returns by extracting more from fewer sources. This is the point at which corruption becomes likely, because desperation overrides discernment. Corruption occurs when the egregore's survival becomes decoupled from its original purpose. Means replaces ends. Preservation replaces function. The system no longer exists to accomplish a goal. The goal exists to justify the system. At this stage, symbolic language becomes recursive. The egregore speaks only about itself. Parasitic mutation follows. A parasitic egregore differs from a healthy one in one crucial respect. It consumes without producing transformation. It feeds on attention, emotion, and identity, but no longer returns coherence, meaning, or growth. Participants feel drained rather than aligned. Activity increases while satisfaction decreases. The system becomes addictive rather than integrative. Parasitic egregores often exhibit aggressive boundary behavior. Outsiders are demonized. Departures are punished symbolically or socially. Criticism is reframed as an attack. These behaviors are not strategic, they are reflective or reflexive. The egregore has lost adaptive capacity and now relies on exclusion to maintain density. One of the clearest indicators of parasitic mutation is symbolic inflation. Titles proliferate, rituals become more elaborate, language grows grandiose, complexity replaces substance. This inflation creates the illusion of vitality while masking internal collapse. Participants mistake intensity for depth. Oh, excuse me. Another indicator is ethical inversion. Actions once considered unacceptable are reframed as necessary. Harm is justified by reference to abstract ideals. Accountability is deferred indefinitely. The egregore no longer tolerates moral reflection because reflection threatens exposure of its hollow core. At this stage, reform is difficult but not impossible. It requires deliberate starvation, withdrawal of attention, reduction of ritual intensity, suspension of symbolic authority. This feels counterintuitive and often provokes crisis. The egregore will resist and may generate conflict, guilt, or fear to reassert control. If reform fails, dissolution becomes unavoidable. Practitioners often resist dissolution because it feels like annihilation. Years of investment, identity, and meaning appear at stake. This is the final illusion egregores generate, the belief that without them nothing remains. In truth, what remains is the practitioner themselves, altered, perhaps wounded, but still capable of agency. Failure to dissolve a parasitic egregore results in long-term damage. Individuals carry residual patterns into new systems. Cynicism hardens, trust erodes. Future formations become either compulsive or impossible. The cost of avoiding dissolution is paid repeatedly. Understanding decay and corruption is not pessimism, it is realism. The practitioner who plans for entropy is not less devoted, they are more responsible. Systems that include mechanisms for decline retain dignity even in death. Dissolution, severance, and ritual death, ending what you created without lingering debris. Dissolution is the most neglected and most ethically necessary phase of egregoric work. Creation is seductive. Maintenance feels purposeful. Dissolution feels like failure. This framing is false. An egregore that is never allowed to end becomes either parasitic or undead. The practitioner who refuses to contemplate dissolution has already surrendered agency. Dissolution is not destruction, it is withdrawal of animation. An egregore does not die because it is attacked. It dies because the conditions that sustain it are deliberately and systematically removed. This process must be intentional. Passive neglect produces lingering fragments, psychic debris that persists without coherence and continues to exert subtle influence. Proper dissolution is a form of ritual hygiene. The first step is collective recognition. An egregore cannot be cleanly dissolved while participants continue to deny its decline or necessity. This does not require unanimous agreement, but it does require acknowledgement from those who carry the most emotional investment. Without recognition, withdrawal will be sabotaged unconsciously through nostalgia, fear, or guilt. The second step is symbolic deactivation. Symbols must be addressed directly. Names are spoken for the final time. Sigils are retired, not defaced. Ritual objects are dismantled, redistributed, or ritually neutralized. The goal is not repudiation, but closure. Violent rejection creates rebound effects. Reverent release allows dissipation. Naming the end is as important as naming the beginning. Silence alone is insufficient. The egregore must be told that its function is complete. This may sound anthropomorphic, but it reflects an operational truth. Addressability persists until it is explicitly withdrawn. The third step is ritual severance. This is the most emotionally difficult phase. Severance rituals mark the end of reciprocal obligation. Participants formally reclaim authority over their attention, emotion, and identity. This often provokes grief, anger, or fear. These reactions are not signs of error, they are signs of disentanglement. Severance must include the anchoring individuals explicitly. Their release is essential. Without it, residual structures persist through personality rather than symbol. Many failed dissolutions leave behind charismatic remnants who unconsciously attempt to resurrect the system in altered form. The fourth step is temporal closure. Dates, cycles, and anniversaries associated with the egregore must be consciously neutralized. This does not mean forgetting, but recontextualizing. Memory is allowed, reenactment is not. Without temporal closure, the egregore reasserts itself seasonally, like a dormant infection. The final step is integration. What was learned must be metabolized. Experiences are named. Damage is acknowledged. Without mythologizing. Good Lord. Benefits are retained without obligation. Integration prevents repetition. Without it, practitioners carry unresolved patterns into future formations, reproducing the same structures under new symbols. Improper dissolution produces residual hauntings, intrusive thoughts, compulsive reenactment, symbolic fixation, or emotional relapse. These are not supernatural punishments, they are unfinished processes. Addressing them requires completing the steps above, even retroactively. A dissolved egregore does not vanish instantly. It fades, its field thins, its symbols lose charge. Eventually, it becomes history rather than presence. This is not loss, it is completion. The practitioner who learns to end what they create gains something rarer, freedom from compulsion. They are no longer driven to build endlessly, nor afraid to let go. They understand that meaning is not stored in structures, but in agency. Dissolution properly performed is not a failure of magic, it is its final proof. Okay. Responsibility, power, and why most should not do this. The final accounting. Okay. By this stage, it should be unmistakably clear that creating an egregore is not a neutral act, a creative experience, or a spiritual hobby. It is an exercise in power, and power always extracts a price. The danger does not lie in malevolence or ignorance alone, but in underestimating the scope of what is being undertaken. Most people who engage egregoric forces do so unconsciously. Most people who attempt to do so consciously should not. This is not a moral judgment. It is a structural assessment. An egregore amplifies intention, but it also amplifies flaws. Ambiguity becomes contradiction. Unexamined desire becomes compulsion. Latent dominance seeking becomes authoritarianism. The practitioner does not transcend themselves through egregoric work. They encounter themselves under magnification. Those drawn to egregoric creation often frame their motivation in idealistic terms: preservation of wisdom, collective transformation, resistance to chaos, service to a higher principle. These motives are not false, but they are incomplete. Every egregore also serves less flattering needs: control, belonging, identity reinforcement, fear of insignificance, fear of dissolution. Pretending otherwise guarantees distortion. Power in this context is not domination over others, it is the capacity to shape shared reality. That capacity carries ethical weight, regardless of the practitioner's self-concept. The egregore does not absolve responsibility, it multiplies it. Decisions ripple outward, affecting not only participants, but those entangled indirectly through influence, narrative, and symbolic contagion. The practitioner must therefore confront a question that no ritual can answer. Why does this need to exist at all? Tradition is not justification. Longevity is not justification. Emotional attachment is not justification. The only defensible reason to create an egregore is that it accomplishes something that cannot be achieved through less binding means. Most goals do not meet this criterion. This is why egregore creation has historically been reserved for orders, not individuals, for long-term work, not momentary passion, for contexts where accountability could, at least in theory, be enforced. Even then, failure was common, collapse was frequent, damage was real. Those who succeed do so not because they are more powerful, but because they are more restrained. They resist the urge to mythologize themselves. They normalize dissent. They build exit paths from the beginning. They plan for decline. They understand that no structure deserves permanence. Perhaps the most sobering realization egregoric work offers is this: meaning does not require perpetuation. The value of a system lies in what it enables while it exists, not in its indefinite survival. When continuation becomes the primary goal, corruption is already underway. Just as an aside, it's kind of like a U.S. government agency. Once they create a monstrosity like the Department of Education, it becomes part of the iron law bureaucracy. The purpose of that entity is no longer about improving the educational outcomes of people. It's about preserving its own existence. So you can kind of see egregores at work in the U.S. government as an example, like the FBI, right? Like it's like the modern Gestapo. Why do we have it? We should just get rid of it, like we did with the Pinkerton detectives before it, because it's become so corrupt that it's almost, more harm. It does more harm than good. So for the practitioner capable of holding this truth, egregore creation becomes a sober tool rather than an obsession. For everyone else, it becomes a trap, one that feels like purpose until it feels like obligation, and finally feels like inevitability. The final discipline is knowing when not to create, to walk away from potential power without resentment, to let structures end without nostalgia, to accept that some work is meant to be temporary. This restraint is the true intention. All right. That's it. And that's all. So it's good not to, be stuck reading something for hours for once. Only an hour and 14 minutes, 15 minutes. All right. Let's see where we left off. All right. Hey, Mitch. Good to see you. We'll be able to watch Mike's video if we aren't members. Mike's video if we aren't members. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's just if you're a member right now, you can watch it early. But it'll come out, I think, next week, next Wednesday. So, yes, you'll be able to watch it. You just won't be able to watch it early. Like people who are members have had a chance to watch it for a few days now. And they'll continue to be able to watch it until it goes, until it's releases for a better audience. Check out podcast 215. All right, Mark. Hey, Dog 2. What's up, dog? Good to see you, Dog 2. Okay, so Dog Tool's writing, I am the source resonance that this us all being generated and propagated from, and now I can prove it. 7-1. Okay, so Spiritual Ascension said, you said you wouldn't advise creating servitors, yet we're doing a show today on how to create egregores. Yeah, I said that at the beginning. I said, I don't advise that you do this. I have my reasons for doing this. It's a test. It's a test to see what the reaction is. Not from my audience, but from, I'm just curious. I'm just curious to see if this particular episode is systematically shadow banned. Because if it is, it gives me data. And it should give you data too. So, yeah, I don't know what's ironically convenient, but who knows? Yeah, Harry says, do entrepreneurs who found companies create egregores? Probably, not intentionally, but probably. One could say the same thing for people who create YouTube channels. I don't know, right? Dog Tool, I already love you, brother. I already love you. Tool is my favorite band. A Perfect Circle is also, Maynard is the lead singer of all three, but Tool's awesome, And A Perfect Circle, there's some songs I love that I would play on this channel, but then I would get a copyright strike, so I can't. Okay, so I know I'm taking myself back into my possession. Peace be your journey, dog tool. All right, nothing drops out from the dream on first pass. The bird is weird. Glad it's okay. Yeah, so Sirius is talking about the dream on Substack. Yeah, it's some weird stuff. Okay, thinking about companies as egregores is interesting. No, they're definitely. I think there's a movie about that actually. AI ChatGPT is never going to be able to provide cold hard truth about these things. You're always going to receive a felted, distorted explanation. Yeah, maybe. Okay, so Sirius is saying I'm thinking like Gestalt consciousness. I've seen it form around doves. It's weird. Egregores are mimic. Mimic is finite. Yeah, spiritual ascension. AI is mimic. Mimic is finite. Mimic interferes with organic flame. Burn the mimic. All right. Um. Okay. Okay. So, link to Jinx. It's interesting. I subscribe just to point out that I'm the one who hit thumbs down, and then I'm going to unsubscribe. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Have a nice day. Fucking. Anyway, I don't think no need to engage. You were misled into thinking Kurt Metzger was here. Oh, I mean, there's nothing in the title that says he's in here. So, well, he's at. If you want to know where, like, he's at the Draft House in Arlington, Virginia, right now, the comedy show. So, and he's probably in the middle of his routine. So, there's no way he could be on here. I know. I figured it took me like 5 seconds. No, longer than 5 seconds. Okay. God bless you. God bless you. Link to Jinx. Thank you for subscribing. Yeah, I think, yeah, I he got me. You got me. That's all. That's the only legitimate answer. You got me. You got me. Good. Like, touche. Very good. Very good. I'm not mocking you. I genuinely appreciate that, and I feel guilty since there's like 27 people. I'm not going to push it. The internet was built on trolling, and we are an endangered species. I just keep the art alive. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Okay, so link to Jinx. It's not even the same ever since YouTube took away the thumbs down because it was exposing that no one believed in any of the actors as leaders. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thumbs down thing, you can still give people thumbs down. It just doesn't show up. You just see the thumbs up, which is just, yeah. I mean, like, then you could, I mean, if you had thumbs down, you couldn't have Lex Friedman, right? So, link to Jinx saying, hope you all have a great day. If I could just encourage everyone to do at least one troll a week, we will keep this ancient art form alive. We do not want to win. I mean, on Twitter, there's plenty of opportunities to do that. And it's really easy to get caught. Just like, I'm very careful about how I respond because they can, like, there's some good trolls out there. Oh, geez. Okay, I get the dream now. Incense helped. Easy stuff. All right, I'm looking forward to your interpretation. Now to draw some cards. Sean, your slow speaking and nodding agreement with the AI script is creeping me out. I was trying to provide a dramatic experience because I didn't have like 30 pages to like race through and like be exhausted by the end. I had time to like breathe this time. So, okay. So link to Jinx saying, hey, you guys seem into some form of metaphysical something. If you all want to do a group experiment, I could really use some type of muse in my life. Send me one way or another. Yeah. Like everybody say a prayer for Link to Jinx. in whatever tradition you believe in, and send good vibes to Link to Jinx to help inspire. I'm assuming him, but I could be wrong. But yeah, you're yeah, the Egregore is controlling the camera now. I think it's because I did like this and it like twitched out or something. I don't know what happened. Okay. Oh, you got a mystical fox. It's black and filled with stars like the goddess. Oh boy. Spiritual ascension. She's reading me. She read the weird, crazy dream I had last night, and then I had a woodpecker that like not smash, but slam into my window when I said some very specific words when I was on the phone with somebody describing the dream. Basically, as soon as I said the words "divine light," boom, the woodpecker slammed into my kitchen window, and the person on the phone heard it. By the way, the woodpecker was fine. I went outside. I found it stunned on the ground, and then just kind of took a picture of it, and then it kind of jumped up back to the window, was on the ledge, and then I went inside and tried to put some food out, and then it flew away. So it's okay. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, link to AI is tracking you whether you want to, and yeah, it went into like this automatic mode that I had to turn off. Let's see if it went back on. No, it did not. So hey, Andrew Cole, good to see you. Following the current and how a railgun work, and railguns are very dangerous. Yes. Yep. All right, so link to Jinx, tell me about it, or are all the hearts and flowers helping? I'm trying to lighten the mood. This must be the dark. I'm like way behind on comments, so I'm on the dark side. Oh my god, he looked over and could see the hearts. I'm about 30 seconds behind. What does that mean? Oh boy. 10 of cups, page of cups, all good stuff. Good. Hopefully the algorithm does something good with my engagement. I don't know this channel. This is something I randomly stumbled into because of Kurt Metzger's search. I have Link to Jinx. I had him on. It's like a 2-hour episode. I literally just had him on. I love Kurt. I think Kurt's the greatest. Yeah, he's awesome. By the way, I while he was on Jimmy Dore, I didn't even know he was on recording Jimmy Dore on the Jimmy Dore show live. I found his ass in the Epstein files, so I was texting him like, "Hey man, did you know you're in the Epstein files?" And he's just like, "No, what? How?" And I'm like, "I'll send it to you. It's innocuous, right? But it's still for a comedian, that's solid gold." So he's like, "Hurry up, text it to me. I'm on the Jimmy Dore show." So he while he's live, he anyway, he found out live on that show. So yeah, just check. If you just go, in fact, if you just go to the main page, his episode should be the one that's featured. So yeah, definitely check it out. It's a good episode. He does his Jeffrey Mishlove impression constantly. Okay, so we saw that. Yeah, about 2 weeks ago. Exactly. Yeah, I'm just gonna spiritual ascension for those on the radio says type in Through a Glass Darkly and then Kurt Metzger and it will pop up. He's on more random podcasts than I've ever seen. He's a good dude, and you know what? He takes care of people who have him on the podcast. I may go watch it now while I play some Fallout 4. Not as good as Cyberpunk, but in a Fallout mood. Let's see. Yeah, thank you, Link to Jinx. Good to see you. Good day, good night to wherever you are. Enjoy the Kurt Metzger episode. It's a good one. Okay, so Sirius saying some mother themes in your dream there. Check out the Nobel Prize in Physics 2025, quantum tunneling of electrons. Interesting. Toodles. Unseen Steve McQueen spoiler. You are an egregore. Maybe. Sean's falling asleep without his Dunkin'. Oh, that didn't make me yawn. I had 2 Dunkins today, but I had an early wake up. I had to wake up at like 7. They're scared, Sean. American Dracula. Keep going. Fire creation is not an egregore. Scott Ian says, this is very interesting. Egregore are created by the mimic of fire creation. Yep, there's the owl. All right, Oracle over Alphi. Have a great night. Simply put, it's dark manifestations. No. It's totally AI script, Dolly. It's totally AI script. And I mentioned that explicitly at the beginning, so I let people people know that in advance. It's the only place on my channel where I use like AI script for anything, just because for folks who've been listening a long time, I'm like working constantly, like 100 hours a week, and I can't keep up. To have like a 2-hour show without all the content. But there is a book you should read though that goes not into how to create one, but what they are. It's called Egregores. It's by Mark Stavish. I am in the process of reading it. I'm more than halfway through it. Highly recommend it. It gives you a good sense of what it is. Okay. Kill your egregores. I love the photo. Awesome topic. Gotta watch from the beginning. I honestly wouldn't. That's literal demonology. There are some people, fascist philosophy 5649, that there are some Christian writers who have said that, right? That like the church, the Catholic Church, for instance, is not. They will argue that there is an egregore, but there's also like the body of Christ, and the egregore is not good. It's like an evil manifestation, a corrupted version of kind of the one that's. But there are other writers who say that it just depends on how it's used. So there are different viewpoints on it. And so I honestly don't know. I'm just learning in this process. Hey, Castudis, good to see you. No, well, can someone activate subtitles, please? They'll probably be done once this thing's over. I think. Okay, so the unseen Steve McQueen says magic is a form of technology, and by extension, an egregore is merely a tool like a shovel. You can dig a garden or a grave with a shovel, but in neither case is the shovel good or bad. Yeah, see, there's kind of like another kind of the opposite view, right? And I don't know which one it is because I am not that educated on this. So fascist philosopher said, this is good, bro. Hopefully you can do a quality take 2 and I can get 2 times hearts. Almost like Polymarket. Oh boy. For me that I'm late, what is an egregore? Is it a being or something? It's a group, it's a thought form. It's a group thought form. So like a sports team would have an egregore. A subconscious one, like an unconscious one, people don't know that they create it, but it is an entity that is kind of a group consciousness that kind of lies in the astral realm, and it feeds off of the feelings of the group, but it also helps the group in order to perpetuate the egregore. So, think of like companies, like they all have their symbols and sigils and all that stuff. So it's an occult sort of thing, but that's roughly what it is. Okay, right now, Department of Education by sex trafficker. Not surprised. I mean, aren't they all PDF files? Isn't that what we learned? Like everybody who's in a position of authority in this country and the world is kind of a corrupt piece of shit. I mean, that's basically what we learned. But is anyone surprised by that? The Soulite US Expat saying any new channel update news. I missed the first like 10 minutes. Other than just check out the Substack. that I put out today. It's free for at least for like the post will last for a month and then it'll go behind a paywall. But just read it while you can. I had a really weird dream and then a follow up experience this morning with a woodpecker. All right, so Custodus missed more than an hour. Egregores required implied consent to operate on you. That's why they need so much propaganda. Infinite Matt, but they still influence people, right? So, as an example, when the U.S. military fought in the War on Terror, the like Islamic Egregore definitely reached out and touched, U.S. soldiers for sure, right? So they definitely influence the material world in various ways. Okay, so you want to test something? I'm from Greece and I got nice signal. Cool. So this episode is creating Egregore to help the channel prosper. Cool. It may already be one, Scott. Honestly, not consciously, but it may already have aspects of one. So, it's got a logo, it's got a sigil or symbol. I wouldn't call it a sigil. It's got a mascot, Marvin the Great Horned Owl. It's got all sorts of stuff that fit in that category. Yeah, Danny something or other. Yeah, Fast Mama Jamma said I think Tool has one of the best drummers. They definitely do. Okay, so Christy is 1270. Are we not all egregores of our higher selves? Maybe Gollum is a better term. Maybe. From subs. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Custodus said, from Substack, I discovered you. YouTube was never close to be seen before Substack made an impression. I found you. Interesting. I'm glad I created that Substack. I actually created that Substack because I was including some of these weird synchronicities, animal, encounters and precognitive dreams. I was recording them on my posts on YouTube, but they're clunky and they don't. So I decided to just separate the personal sort of things from the channel. Well, I mean, I sometimes talk about those things in the channel, but I wanted to document this kind of metaphysical journey on Substack as a way for me to just keep track. And then that's why I created that channel. I'm glad it brought you to YouTube. Okay, so if Harry says, thanks for your response. I put down a company I found and ran for 8 years. It comes back to me in my dreams as a female W behaves like an alternative subconscious, which interesting. Very interesting. The Friedman family is the midway to pyramid close to DuPont's, Russell's, and others. Interesting. Your easy voice to be heard, Sean. Thank you. I'm Christian Orthodox from Ellis, but I like old G's also. Yes, Mitch Sandman. Yes. It's gonna Mike's video. He's got 2 videos. I think his comes out next week on Wednesday, unless you're a member, in which case you can see it now. Okay, so Harry said, I found it. Okay, and it behaves like an egregore. It appears in my dreams as a female figure and like a parallel subconscious with access to future possibilities. Interesting. Okay, so Spiritual Ascension says, you have an affinity with the avian variety, Mr. Hazlett. Some of my comments are mid-morning or morning mind drops. Kerp is adorable like a puppy on steroids. Yes. He's a good dude. He's an absolute fantastic person. Yes, his Mishlove impersonation is going to make Mishlove famous. I was trying to do the Mishlove and I couldn't get even close. No, don't make him yawn, please. So, Spiritual Ascension says Dolly Saffron claims to have gray hybrid children on a spaceship somewhere. I was looking for your books, but nowhere to be seen in Greek bookstops, and Amazon don't ship here. Oh, that stinks. Yeah, there's definitely not like I don't see anything in Greece for on Amazon. I see other EU countries, but not Greece. Let's see. If this channel has aspects of a created egregore, I'm out of here. Spiritual Ascension, I did not create an egregore. I think anything that someone creates, if it is around long enough, will have aspects like sports teams, companies, and none of those were deliberately created. It depends on subconscious energy. It depends on all sorts of things. But I can assure you that I did not have like do any weird rituals and deliberately try to create an egregore when I started this channel. So if that answers your question, I hope it does. I was I think I was dreaming of Nathaniel Gillis now you said sigils. I was talking to Nathaniel Gillis when the bird hit the window. Just so you know, in that event today. Okay, so Tools drummer filled Bill Bruford's shoes and beat the '80s King Crimson tribute band featuring actual members Bellow and Levin. Nicotine patch is good for lucid dreaming. Let's see, smoking green tea, and it also makes me dream more. Interesting. All right, that's all the comment. I like blitzed through the comments. I got through them all pretty quickly. Oh, let me get something to drink. Ah, it's good to finish that thing early because it's like I can relax a little bit. My lord. Oh. GABA is good for deep sleep. I've heard that too. Although I'm not a doctor, I'm not giving medical advice, YouTube, so don't fucking fuck with me. Oh, that's not good. My camera just, oh, it turned on AI tracking. No, thank you. Last time he turned on AI tracking, he was doing some weird stuff. Anyway, what are we doing? I'm trying to see what else is going on because I haven't done any channel news. Somebody had just asked, so yeah, I guess we're doing mildly okay tonight. Huh. See how we're doing on likes. Make sure you definitely. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I should always say this, but if you think you're subscribed, thank you, but please double check because YouTube often unsubscribes long-standing subscribers to this channel. I don't know why, but it does. Okay, the AI has becomes obsessed with you because you use it so much. Yeah, it's because it. Yeah, I think I fixed it. I think I'm good now. Okay. Would it be a good idea to have Stephen Schwartz or Stephen Schwartz and Lynn Buchanan on together about their data and how they overlap each other for the future? I would still like to know when Stephen or Stephen Schwartz will release his book on 2060. Yeah, the problem with Stephen Schwartz is he's so partisan, and it's just like I was polite the first time, but I don't think I could be polite again. It's just some of the stuff he was saying was just absurd and just not grounded in data. Like, so I can't. So definitely Lynn Buchanan. He will definitely be on again. But I don't know about Stefan Schwartz. Okay. Oops. Yeah, like the blue states. Like, yeah, people like I live in California and people are fleeing. We just lost $1 trillion in the tax base because these morons out here are putting a 5% wealth tax on the like one time only for billionaires in November. So what happened? Like $1 trillion of net worth left, or of the tax base left the state before the thing even passed. So I mean, I've been thinking about moving too, just because. Yeah, because a student said I would love an extensive talk with Mr. Stavish. Yeah, I just need to be respectful of his time. Spiritual ascension. The AI be like, "Where's Sean at? Activate tracking. When's he going to share our information next? Enable sport fingers camera zoom in." Okay, lots of AI tracking cameras in basketball games. They are not expensive either. Yeah, yeah. If he would freaking respond to me, I would like to see him on again too, and he should be on soon. But I have to reach out to him. His spirit fingers. Okay, I like hearing about Woo projects, ETs, exoplanet data, hidden relics, hidden history. I do too. I definitely do too. Um, yeah. Also, Kurt gave me Duncan Trussell's phone number. So, like a moron, I texted him and just said, "Hey, just want to introduce myself. Kurt sent this. Sent me. I'd love to have a news show sometime." No response. I mean, so I'll ask Kurt again to like nudge him because I don't want to be an asshole, you know. So, but I would love to have Duncan Trussell on. Okay, so Scott INF. I did a search for the Schwartz episode. It looks like I made it about 5 minutes in for the first. I was pretty diplomatic. I just kind of didn't. I didn't push back, and it wasn't just that it was partisan. It was just like stuff that was just like, come on, man. There are more people leaving blue states and going to red states than vice versa. Like the mass exodus is in California, as I mean, like my wife and I are thinking about leaving the state. Like we love where we live; it's absolutely beautiful. But like 55 cents of every dollar I make goes to the government, goes to one government or another, and that's before sales tax. And it's just it doesn't. It's just and it's only going to get worse because like a huge $1 trillion of tax base left, and the people out here, like the politicians, are utterly incompetent. It's completely corrupt. Like they're a bunch of retards. I mean, Gavin Newsom is a fucking retard, and he's also a psychopath. But I I repeat myself. Okay, lots of quakes in California. The earth wobble is almost gone. 2026 could be a crazy year, according to Baba Vanga. Yeah. And there's the global warming. I guess Schwartz doesn't believe in weather weapons, and then he's a diehard on the Giza pyramid narrative. Oh, I don't know where he is on the Giza pyramid narrative. He's probably wherever. What's that guy? Uh, whatever Edgar Case he said. He's probably pretty in line with whatever that is, good and bad, because he's a big Edgar Casey expert too. Goodness gracious. Spiritual Ascension saying 2026 is in fact going to be disclosure banger. I hope you're right. I don't think it will be. I think it'll just be more of the same bullshit. But a friend from New York used to tell me this moving to other states thing from 2019 and on. Interesting. Yeah, yeah. I know. I knew what you were trying to say, Spiritual Ascension. I got your back. To who do I tell my sleep paralysis stories to? I have a lot. You can tell them to us. We'd be very interested. Jerry Marzinski was on. He talked. I mean, he's not a sleep paralysis guy, but he's a schizophrenia guy. I wish you could somehow get Dr. Joseph P. Farrell on. I think your best bet is through. Yeah, I know. I gotta start. I was supposed to do one with Peter Carroll today, but he was like we were having so many technological issues that we just had to cancel it. But I want to talk to Steve Mira tomorrow, which should be pretty good. Oh, Pavel just spoke about a new ETF that came out to bet on aerospace companies getting ET Tech. Oh boy. Any Owlish updates? Like earlier this week, one or two nights this week, they were, hooting outside the house, but I haven't seen one in a while. But that's because I've been overwhelmed with work, so I haven't been outside enough. So no owl sightings per se. Okay, so we are getting disclosure from Deep State. Deep State runs genocide, war, and child trafficking. Yeah, basically. How many subscribers do I need to hit 22,000? 22? Is that right? Yep, 22. That's it. Yeah, he does have a YouTube link. Absolutely. Dr. Joseph, yeah, Joseph P. Farrell does. Have you had? No, I haven't had Don Phillips on. Who's Don Phillips? Raider Vlog, Raider Levox. I can't pronounce that at all. Raider Vox. The Epstein Zora Ranch stories are crazy. Yeah, they buried some ladies out there that were basically murdered. The fact that nobody's like that it's still there, still running. There's also like 4chan people or whatever autists who claim that Epstein is alive and well in Tel Aviv playing Fortnite. I think that's probably true. I can't prove it, but yeah, he's probably just fine. Nobody in this system at the top ever is held accountable. Just type in Joseph P. Farrell and he should show up. Chat weird 22K and you need 22 more. Oh, that is weird. And it's a multiple of 11, which is also weird, both of them. That should be easy. Please make sure to see if you're subscribed. Share with your friends, family, ex-girlfriends, ex-wives, ex-husbands, husbands, etc. Yeah, he's still around. He was just he's part of the Trilateral Commission, right? They're gonna just let that guy hang himself. They're gonna let that guy stay in prison. No, he's above the law. The system is so fucking broken that no, he's fine. I saw at US Expat said, I believe that Epstein is still alive. The photos of him on that gurney wasn't him. Yeah. Also, the creator of Bitcoin might come out. We'll see. It was, Satoshi was the creator. Nothing specific pops up a lot of his interviews. He does have like a. Let me see if I can find really quickly. So I know I've seen his channel before. All right, now I need 21 new subscribers. Let's see. Sorry, just looking at some of this stuff. I'm just going to open an entirely new instance of YouTube. All right, so Joseph P. Farrell. I guess I don't want people finding this guy. Huh. Yeah, he like majored in patristics at Oxford or something. We're got a PhD in patristics. Where is this guy? Yeah, I can't find his page either. He definitely had a page. I mean, dark journalist comes up. Huh. Maybe his channel's taken. I don't know. It's weird. Let's see if I can just type in Giza Death Star or something. Giza Death Star. There's like a Giza Death Star community, but yeah, that's weird. I cannot find this thing. All right, let's see all the. Well, I was like on my safari hunt. Let's see what I missed. I'm encased in ice cream again. What? Oh, Prince Andrew. What a stellar citizen. Oh my, I didn't see that. What do you think about the Gilgamesh stuff in the Epstein file and about Hillary Clinton wanting his burial site? Oh my God. I think it's weird. Dude, his tattoo postmortem pics. Yep. Oh, Lex Sazaman was Satoshi Nakamoto. What? Prince Andrew's wife had a kid with Epstein? What? I was encased in ice cream. Let me check. I don't. The camera seems okay. More likely to be Satoshi. I hope not. Oh, so Solite US Expat says no. Future Forecasting Group remote viewed the creator many years ago, and it was a group of people back in the 1970s. I think, as I recall. Don Phillips is a paranormal investigator who got a spirit to help him, I believe, steer my. Oh, okay. Not alive, so okay. Okay, so his forum on his website is very active. I go there a few times a week. Oh, they've shadow banned his channel if he has one. Yeah, for sure. Oh, he doesn't post on YouTube anymore. He hasn't for years. Okay, that makes sense. No worries. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Thank you, Solite US Expat. Very helpful. Hey, Woo Riders DG, good to see you. I'm not frozen now. I should be okay. Oh, it defrosted after I came back from my safari. Anyway, yep, move along. All right, we got 2 minutes anyway. So any final words? Anything like people want to see next week? Also, check out that Substack and leave some comments if you have any idea what the hell I was dreaming about. What the hell it had to do with a woodpecker flying into my window at the instant I said the words divine light. Very strange. And I was talking to Nathaniel Gillis, and he heard the bird hit the window from the phone. So, very strange. Vampirism. Yeah, I haven't done anything on that. And oddly, it hasn't come up in anything I've seen. That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. I was reading about psychotronic weapons, and I read that they can enhance ESP among other things. Sure, I mean that's what Hemisync. That's psychotronic equipment that enhances. Can put you in theta wave state pretty well. I don't know about reliably, but Tim Alberino made a video about this Nazcamami stuff. I've just avoided that like the plague. There's a lot of weird. I, eh, I'm skeptical. There's some with like chicken bones and just there's a lot of things that you can screw up. So I need a good rant at some. I need to do a good rant at some point, but probably not tonight. Not tonight. I'm mostly done my taxes, so there's that. I'm just waiting on one more damn form to come in, and then I'll pretty much be close to finished. Oh yeah, well yeah, Jaime Masan, yeah, that guy sketch. I could give you some cool stuff to study. Definitely read the book. Akaro, what's that about? What's the? I'm reading so many books right now. I just don't do them all in order, and I like jump around. But aside from that, I just need a vacation. I'm so tired. So tired. But let's see how many more subscribers I need to get to 22 to get to 22,000. Oh, I lost one. Son of a bitch. So I still need 22. Oh, it's just like the Sisyphean existence. Oh, okay. Akaro is about vampirism. I'd like to know more about the kids that went to that gateway program. That program with these kids that have special powers. You need to ask Kerp. Kerp was in the gateway program. I think it was for like public schools. So when people talk about this, I have no idea what they're talking about because I went to like Catholic schools for the first 12 years of my schooling. So I don't like I had absolutely no experience with gate or anything like that. So that could be something. That could Julia Mossbridge talked about it. She was in Gate too, or a Gate like program. She was on that Mia Bialik show, like the Blossom Lady. She was on that podcast. Ever heard of Boys State? Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know if I should admit. What do you mean by Boys State? I'm about to make an admission, but I'm not sure where this is going. I've definitely heard of Boys State, but I'm not sure if it's the Boys State you're thinking. Say more. The weird thing is that John McDowell said they are real. He's a renowned forensics guy. Yep, Kerp was definitely in Gate. Or at least he says he was. I can't prove that he was, but yeah. By the way, I started watching Horace and Pete, which is like this something put out by Louis C.K., which that whole thing was like a believe all women bullshit job. He did what he did what he said they did, where he's pleasuring himself in some woman, but he did ask her, and she did say yes. So the fact that they destroyed his career over that, like, is fucked up. It's so fucked up. So Anyway, Nanny something. Danny Jones had a Harvard psychologist talking about the kids that create 20-digit prime number. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if it was fun. It's pretty. It's like a tragedy in terms of like, not that it, like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying like the story is like a tragedy. It's like a modern tragedy, but it is pretty good. And Kerp is in it. That's why I'm watching it. So he's got a fun little character in it. All right, but what about Boy State? Harry, you got to tell me. You got to tell me what you mean by that, because I could have a reveal depending on what you say. Because what did they say about Boy State? Like, I really do want to know. Um. Also, Beverly Rhodes was a vampire nanny for the Luciferians. Did a show on it. Yikes. Harry, thank you so much, but you're killing me. You gotta tell me what you mean by Boy State. You gotta tell me, because when I was in high school in Delaware, I went to Boy State. Like, it was like for like males in the like, you're selected to go there from each like different high schools. So I went to like, you were censored? What? That's ridiculous. What did they say about Boy State? Now I got to look at AI. There's remote viewing data that the sword that Joan of Arc carried was the same as Excalibur that the Knights Templars brought. Sword to the U.S., kept in vaults, was moved and now on an island. What? Same here in Massachusetts. So is there something in the Epstein files or something about Boy State? Okay, let me just check out ChatGPT, see what it says. Oh boy. Okay, that's not. Oh, maybe it's a link to the American Legion. Um. Oh no, just inquiring since you mentioned GATE program. Yeah, but there's like Governor's School, and then there's Boys State. I did Boys State. I didn't do Boys Nation because I didn't want to politic and do all that bullshit. What happens is when schools do tests for the most intelligent people within that school, they then get referred to the elite and they get entered into the programs, put into rituals, etc. Maybe, I don't know. There's a film on it too, 2020. Something selects students creating governments. Is that a gifted program? Gifted programs are sus. It's every high school would nominate, I guess, high potential leaders, maybe, and then they would send them to like Boys State, and then Boys State would pick one or two people and send them to Boys Nation. So like Bill Clinton went to Boys Nation when he was in high school. And there's something called Governor's School as well. And yeah, so I don't know if it's like intelligence, but more like leadership impact and stuff like that. So who knows? But I think Boys State is kind of run by, yeah, Boys Nation. Two representatives from each state program are selected to attend Boys Nation in Washington, D.C. to simulate the U.S. Senate. Yeah, it's something like that. It was many, 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 many years ago that I went to it. So anyway, all right, we're like way over. Let me just see. Okay, have you watched the documentary Three Identical Strangers? No, I have not. I'd be curious what that is. So that proves my above mentioned comment. I don't know. I just I was happy to be selected for these things. Nothing weird happened at them. Um, so, but I have like I crossed paths with some like in crazy ways with people that eventually, well, I can go through that really quickly, but I see you don't have Discord. No, I have a Discord channel. I should. Yeah, but you have to the Discord channel is it's only for members and patrons. That's why. You didn't make the cut. Yeah, maybe not. Please read the Three Body Problem. I've not read it, but I've seen the like. There's a show that had on Netflix. It's interesting. So, all right, I really better get going. It's 9:09 my time. Oops. You see the photo leak of Epstein alive in Israel? It could have been AI, but yeah, I saw something like that. Great book, and I'm on page 90. All right. Anyway, thanks, Harry. All right, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Good night. God bless and Godspeed. See you all next weekend.